I should have died the day I gave birth, and the only reason I'm here is because an amazing team of doctors and nurses that saved my life not only once that day, but twice in a 12-hour period. October 1st is Placenta Accreta Awareness Month, and I want to share my story for the second time since nearly losing my life from undiagnosed placenta accreta. This is a hard story for me to tell. I still have a lot of birth trauma I am coping through, so please just have grace with me as I share my story in hopes of bringing awareness to accreta. I was actually diagnosed with a couple things throughout my pregnancy. I had placenta previa, which is actually like a red flag for accretas. I had marginal cord insertion, I had placenta lakes, and I also had something called, and I'm going to butcher the name like I always did, cum volate placenta. So I had a slew of things going wrong with my placenta, and the accreta went missed, and unfortunately that's very common for accreta pregnancies. Really the only way to diagnose it is through an MRI, and unfortunately, I didn't have that done. So I had to have an emergency C-section at 34 weeks. I was already in the hospital for severe pre-E, and I feel like that's kind of another thing I've seen hand in hand with accretas is a lot of the moms have pre-E, so I was right there with that. So I had an emergency C-section that day. Everything was fine up until they took the baby out. I got to meet her, and then I just feel like everything just fell apart after that. I am a postpartum nurse, so I started hearing a lot of terminology that has to do with like massive blood loss, and that's when I knew something was significantly wrong. They kicked my husband out. They asked him, to leave, and they took the baby away, and I knew this wasn't going to be good by just everyone's reactions and how things were going out in the OR. And like I said, this is so hard for me to talk about. So that feeling of like laying on the table and like I got extremely sick. I was throwing up, super nauseous. The anesthesiologist was just trying to keep me like alert and oriented, talking to me and stuff. I could, the blood pressure was dropping and I kind of knew what was going on. They did a mass blood infusion on me. They were pumping me with fluids, trying to keep my blood pressure up, and it was just very chaotic for a good 30 minutes. And like I said, these are my own coworkers working to save my life, and eventually they had to put a Jada device in because they thought I just had a boggy uterus at the time. So they put the device in my uterus and got me stable enough to go back to high risk OB. So for 12 hours I thought like my uterus would just be okay after this, and they took the device out 12 hours later, and I thought for a split second I was gonna go see my baby in the NICU, and that's not what happened. As soon as they took the device out, I was alone because my husband was in the NICU with baby girl, and I knew as a postpartum nurse, once they took that device out, it was like Niagara Falls of like blood. It was just everywhere. I'd never even seen this much blood as a postpartum nurse. Like I knew instantly I'm either gonna die right here or I'm gonna lose my uterus to try to like save my life. I knew right then. I texted my family. I was like, I'm gonna lose my uterus. I called my husband, like, you need to come back now. And like I remember him walking in the room and like it was like he saw a ghost. Because he wasn't ready to see like all the blood, all the doctors. They called a code. They did like, trying to, everyone was just kind of in shock. It was so much blood. Clots, big clots and stuff. And I looked at him, I'm like, I'm gonna die. Like, I'm gonna die. And I remember them running me to the OR, and I remember like life being slipped away and just thinking like I'm never gonna meet my baby. She's never gonna know her mom. I remember the anesthesiologist talking to me, and at that time I just blacked out. And I woke up in the ICU, and that's when they told me that I lost my uterus. And a lot of blood, I think it was over 22 units of blood that I had to get that day in total. They said I lost complete 100% of my blood volume within that 12-hour period, that they just had to keep pumping me, which is extremely common for accretas, especially undiagnosed. I'm very lucky to be here is all I have to say, and it's a really shout out to those doctors and nurses, my coworkers, everyone, that saved my life that day, because a lot of women aren't as unfortunate as me. Accretas are actually on the rise due to the increase in C-sections and increase in IVF. but it is extremely rare for someone that's never had a C-section or any type of uterine surgery internally. Obviously I have for endo externally to have accretas, but with IVF it does bring your risk for anything with the placenta to go wrong up. So that's kind of where I stood with that, and I hope that my story is able to bring awareness to other people going through accretas, other people going through birth trauma, and I hope that it can bring enough awareness for more research to be done into accreta pregnancies, because it's very unknown. A lot, I feel like, just goes missed, and it's one of like the leading causes of death in pregnancies. So, wow, guys, and I'm gonna take a bubble bath because I'm home now. I can do that, and I'm not in an RV. I need a bubble bath with my baby girl. So, Accreta moms, shout out to you. We are warriors.